Do you love yourself and your life as much as your Instagram feed would make you believe? Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm a fourth generation intuitive author, and today I want to talk to you about true self-love versus social media self-love. Now, we have grown up in the age of the internet. It is ubiquitous. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, these are our tools that we use to navigate the day. This is how we connect to one another, how we tell our stories, but it's also how we curate our lives and even stories about ourselves. And there's a real big difference between real self-love. When you're like, I know who I am, I love myself, I am a badass bitch, versus when it's something that's on Instagram. It's a curated image of how you want other people to see you. These are two different stratospheres because in reality, social media isn't real. It's a tool, and how we use that tool is a big game changer in how we relate to ourselves, how we connect to our spirit, how we trust our intuition, and how we make decisions in life. I remember a few years ago, I was hanging out with one of my good friends. And when I looked on her social media feed, what I saw was just like the most amazing life. She was at concerts, she was traveling with friends, in great shape, beautiful, beautiful clothes, all of these different things. And when I looked at her social media feed, I would think, oh my goodness, not only do you have your life so together, but wow, like this is aspirational. This is something that I want to aspire to. And I remember then picking up the phone and talking to her, and what she projected on the internet and what was actually happening in real life could not have been further light years away. She hated her job, miserable, felt completely trapped. Her friends, her beautiful group of friends that she was with, were all little ice skaters who didn't get her, who talked about her behind her back, who just were not her people. Her travel was primarily for work and in a work that she didn't enjoy. But the image that she curated and shared was completely different than what was actually happening in real life. And the interesting thing that I even found even more when talking to her was that not only did she have this curated feed, but also the responsibility to then, perpetuate this image that she had created. My life is big and beautiful and amazing, but in reality, it's not. But because I project that, that's a story that I have to keep telling, and a lie that I'm telling not only to myself, but to others. And that's the crazy thing about social media. And that is how we can get caught up, whether in the ego trap of how we want other people to see us. That's ego, and also a form of control, how I want you to see me because I want you to see me in a certain way or certain light, versus I know who I am. I know what I love about myself. I know what I really deeply care about and how I can share that with the world. I was actually looking up some different facts and statistics and for this video, because I'm like, we all know. But they said that a statistic and a fact, I will have to look up exactly who it was, but this study basically said that the more that you look at social media, the more that we compare ourselves to other people, and the less that we actually have a real pulse on our own well-being and actually then undervalue our lives, our gifts, and the things that we love. It's a whole other thing. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, never mind. I tried to read the quote. Isn't going to work. But let's try it again. Basically, long story short, they took people over a period of 10 days. And the greater that they used social media, the worse that they felt. And it didn't increase positive affective states, which means feeling good or feeling good about yourself, but actually negative. So you feel worse about yourself, about your accomplishments, about what's going on. You know why? We all know. Because we compare. And there is a beautiful quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And I know that for me, with my little choopy friend client who I was talking about at the beginning, and even now, anytime that I wake up and scroll through social media, it can oftentimes be a very good one-way track into me feeling like I'm not enough, that I don't have X, Y, or Z And I recognize how funny it is that we have these gaps in our stories and how we fill those in for others. You look at that curated profile, that curated image, that curated thing, and you fill in the gaps and you say that their life is a fairy tale or easier or whatever by taking these teeny tiny little microscopic pieces that we curate to share with others. Now, don't get me wrong, social media is a tool. It's not all or nothing. We can curate our feed and we can actually have social media be a really wonderful way that we connect with one another. But if we're not aware of how we use social media, it can be a really easy way for our ego to chip away at ourselves, at our gifts, at our spirit, and just be harder on ourselves. Let's be completely honest. So let's talk about the difference between social media love, which is how many likes do I get, or what's my background, or how I have to capture this moment to share, to show people how amazing my life is, versus real self-love. I know who I am, I know what my value is, I know what I care about, and when I can use these different platforms, these can be different ways that I can share and even boost good vibes and energy. So I'm gonna share some of my favorite tools to really help foster and deepen your own loving relationship with yourself. And when you do this, everything in your life gets better because it uncomplicates stuff. Our head is constantly looking to other people to say, what are they doing? What's going on? Am I good? Social media is really good at that. But if you really love yourself, which for me in my world, I'm that's connecting to your spirit, your essence, your beauty, your gifts, your amazingness, then that confidence comes naturally and you recognize that what is for you is in your path. And you can champion other people and not have it be in a level of comparing. So let's get into it. 1, don't pick up your phone before you have at least 15 minutes in the morning. This I find is a really wonderful, super easy tool to help connect to our self-love and even just connect to our own energy and vibration before we move into the world. Our world is constantly bombarded by information. And tell me in the comments, are you somebody who picks up your phone right away? Is that your first thing, that when you wake up, you pick up your phone? Good information. Because when we do that, that's when we distract ourselves and get out of the present moment. That's where we disconnect from our spirit, from our intuition, and even just from being sensitive to ourselves. When we use our phones, which are tools, we can numb ourselves to the effect it has on us and numb ourselves to even how it is that we feel. So 1, don't use your phone for at least the first 15 minutes of your day. That is a way that you can be super self-loving. 2, there is something that I have in my life where I have my own spiritual routine. Now, I've talked about this many different times. Usually for me, it's some movement, some meditation. But what I love to close it out with is a little jar that I have, and I have Post-it notes. So get a Post-it note and a jar, and you're gonna write the day, and you're gonna write down 3 different things. 1, 3 things that you love about yourself. And really have it be a practice. What do you really love about yourself? Do you love that you're a good listener, that you're creative, that you're smart? Do you love that you're a good cook, that you're funny, that you're generous? And I would also challenge you to not just make it about helping people, because a lot of times as empaths and intuitives, that's what we can do, have our identity around helping people. So 3 things that you love about yourself, 3 things that you're proud of. What are you proud of? It can be simple things. Today, I am proud that I did yoga this morning. I didn't want to, but I said, give myself 5 minutes of yoga, and I did it, and I'm proud that I showed up. When we can really start to affirm the things that we know about ourselves to be true. And this doesn't have to be competitive, but really, what are you proud of? It starts to take ownership of our gifts. It starts to take ownership of our lived experience. And instead of looking to other people to validate us, we start to validate ourselves. I validate myself. So these are the things that I'm proud of. And then 3 things that you're grateful for. When we're grateful, this helps to change our energy instead of looking at what we're lacking, which is an evolutionary advantage. Evolutionarily, we like to see what we're missing. It's something called the negativity bias. We've used it to help ourselves to survive, but now since we're not fighting off saber-toothed tigers and we're in the world, that negativity bias can be a negativity virus. And that's where we can be hard on ourselves, be critical of ourselves, get into comparing. And so when we can say the things that we're grateful for, that shifts that energy to where we are in abundance. Where are the things that we love about our hearts? What are the things that we love about our lives? And then, take that energy and really even putting one hand on your heart, one hand in your belly, which is a beautiful way to connect to your spirit, of just tuning into that loving energy and sending that loving energy to yourself. And if you're somebody who has trouble, if it's like, I really work on my self-love, this is something where I get really critical and I can hear my little ego barking dog that has death by a million paper cuts. A really beautiful tool is a heart-based meditation. And so while you're sitting, bring to mind somebody that you love, whether it be your pet or a family member or a child or a niece or nephew, just somebody that when you think of, your whole heart gets warm and fuzzy. Just you overflow with gratitude for this person. And then take that love that you imagine and then just pour it into yourself, thinking about yourself. And, give me one thing that you love. What's something that you love about yourself? What's something that you're grateful for? Tell me in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Some things that I love about myself. I'm funny and creative. I love to listen. I'm flexible sometimes. When we make it that practice of self-love instead of self-lack, that's where we can start to change the channel. And 4, limit your social media screen time. Use it as a tool. Curate your feed. Is there anyone or anything that you look at and makes you feel bad about yourself or like you should be trying harder? Then unfollow, unfriend, mute, whatever. These are ways that we can practice being self-loving by being aware of what it is that we feed our conscious mind, because that in and of itself is a self-loving practice and tool. And last but not least, recognize when you're tired, when you're bored, or when you need another way to fill your cup. I know that sometimes I find myself doom scrolling when I'm bored or tired, and what I really need is just a time out. But instead, I end up getting, it's almost like you black out and you're scrolling. And that is another way that we can be unconscious of our tools. A friend of mine gave me you can do a thing of like do not disturb between these times, and it will gray out the different apps, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, email, text, from 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. or 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So then you can actually start to give yourself buffer times. Another good one that I like to use is a one called Moment, and that helps me tell me how much time I actually spend on these different apps, because once you can become aware, that's when we can start to change. So really start by telling yourself and really claiming the things that you love about yourself. Make it a practice and use your social media as a tool to connect, and remember more than anything, it's not real life, and that our imaginations get hijacked and like to tell stories that are not true. And if you're really struggling with your own self-love and your own confidence, I would always encourage you to move your body. It's a really beautiful way to move the energy and get out of the mental energy of overthinking and back into the present moment. And last not but not least, because I have so many different tools, get a picture of yourself as a baby. And, look at that sweet little baby face and think, would I say that to that sweet baby? I have even more tools. I could go on this subject for forever because I really feel very strongly and passionately about social media and how to use it, obviously. But the most important thing is remember that you are not your personality, you are not your ego, you are not your job, you are none of those things. You are spirit. And the more that you can lean into that instead of these different other outside aspects, the more grounded, the more loving that you will feel towards yourself, the more internal space that you'll have. And knowing what kind of spirit you have and what to better take care of yourself. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Hit like, subscribe, leave me a message, tell me what you think. How do you feel about social media? What do you do? And as always, in my down under below, like get my little intuitive workbook, and also on top of it, get my guided meditation. I have tons of tools to help you better connect. So leave me a comment, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. I am sending you all my love. Bye.